Marriage is like a subscription service you forgot to cancel. It keeps charging you monthly, the content gets worse over time, and eventually you realize everyone else is sharing passwords behind your back. I should have seen it coming with Cleo. The signs were all there, scattered across 3 months like breadcrumbs leading to disaster. Late nights at the office, new gym memberships, suddenly caring about her appearance again after years of sweatpants and messy buns. But the text message on that Friday morning was what finally opened my eyes. He's just a coworker. Stop being toxic. I stared at my phone screen, sitting in my home office where I'd been working since 6 a.m. Wes Farrow, senior software architect, reduced to being called toxic by his own wife for asking why she'd been texting someone named Ethan at midnight. Cleo was in the kitchen, making her usual protein smoothie and checking her reflection in every reflective surface she passed. Her dark hair was perfectly styled, makeup applied with surgical precision, all for a regular Friday at her HR job. "Who's Ethan?" I'd asked her 20 minutes earlier. That's when the text came. Not a conversation, not an explanation. Just that dismissive little message that told me everything I needed to know about where our 12-year marriage stood. I walked downstairs and found her packing a small overnight bag. Designer clothes folded neatly, her good perfume, the lingerie I hadn't seen her wear in 2 years. "Going somewhere?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. She didn't look up. "Girls' weekend. I told you about it." "No, you didn't." "Well, I'm telling you now." She zipped the bag with more force than necessary. "Marissa found this cute cabin up north. We need some time to decompress." Marissa. Her enabling friend who'd been divorced twice and treated marriage like a competitive sport where the goal was to see who could hurt their spouse the most. "What cabin?" Cleo finally looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before in her green eyes. Contempt. Pure, undiluted contempt. "You don't own me, Wes. I don't need to report my every movement to you." "I'm not asking you to report anything. I'm asking my wife where she's going for the weekend." She grabbed her purse and keys. "I'll be back Sunday night. Try not to burn the house down." The front door slammed behind her with enough force to rattle the windows. I watched through the living room blinds as she tossed her bag into her silver Honda and backed out of our driveway without looking back. That's when I noticed something interesting. She turned left at the end of our street. Left led to the highway heading north. But Marissa lived south of us, and if they were carpooling, Cleo would have gone right. I sat down at my computer and did what any reasonable software architect would do when presented with a puzzle. I started gathering data. Cleo's credit card statements were still linked to my email for household management. I pulled up the last 3 months and started looking for patterns. There it was. Charges at restaurants I'd never been to, a Victoria's Secret purchase she'd hidden, and most interesting of all, a payment to something called Lakeshore Cabin Rentals from 2 weeks ago. I cross-referenced the charge with her work calendar that she shared with me for family planning. The weekend she'd claimed to be at her sister's baby shower, she'd actually rented a cabin. Her sister lived in Arizona and hadn't been pregnant since 2019. My phone buzzed with a text from Andy Tran, my best friend since college and the only person I trusted completely. "Beer tonight? Jennifer's working late." I typed back, "Rain check. Cleo's gone for the weekend. I've got some housekeeping to do." Andy knew me well enough to read between the lines. 3 dots appeared immediately. "Need backup? I've got this one." And I did. For the first time in months, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I started with her closet. Every dress, every pair of shoes, every piece of jewelry she'd accumulated over our years together. I folded everything neatly into boxes I'd grabbed from the garage, her books from the nightstand, her expensive skincare products from the bathroom, her collection of coffee mugs with inspirational quotes. It took me 3 hours to pack 12 years of shared life. When I was finished, I had 7 boxes stacked by the front door like packages waiting for pickup. Next, I called a locksmith. I need my locks changed today. Emergency situation. That'll cost extra for weekend service. Money's not an issue. Tom the locksmith arrived at 4 p.m., a weathered guy in his 50s who'd probably seen this scenario before. He didn't ask questions, just got to work replacing the front door lock, the back door, and the garage door keypad. You want me to leave the old keys? He asked when he was finished. Keep them. I won't be needing them anymore. While he worked, I'd been busy with the computer. I removed Cleo's access from our joint checking account, our savings, and the credit cards. I kept detailed screenshots of every change, every transaction, every piece of evidence that this house and these accounts belonged to me. The house had been mine before we married. I'd bought it with my signing bonus from my first tech job, and Cleo had moved in after our wedding. Her name was never on the deed, never on the mortgage. She'd always said she didn't want the responsibility of homeownership. How convenient that turned out to be. By 6 p.m., I was sitting in my kitchen with a cup of coffee and a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in years. I pulled out my phone and sent one text message to Robert Beckett, Cleo's father. She's your responsibility now. Then I turned off my phone and went to make dinner. Just for one. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of crisp October air that made you want to believe in fresh starts. I'd slept better than I had in months, alone in the king-sized bed that suddenly felt perfectly sized for one person. I made coffee and checked my phone for the first time since Friday evening. 47 missed calls, 63 text messages, and 17 voicemails. I poured my coffee and settled into my favorite chair to enjoy the show. The first voicemail was from Friday night, around 11 p.m. Wes, what the hell? My key doesn't work. Call me back. Her voice was confused but not panicked. She probably thought it was a mistake. The second one came 20 minutes later. Seriously, Wes, this isn't funny. I'm standing in our driveway like an idiot. Mrs. Dalrymple is staring at me through her window. Call me back right now. By the third message, reality was setting in. I see my stuff outside. What is wrong with you? You can't just throw me out of my own house. This is insane. But it wasn't her house. It never had been. The messages continued through the night, each one more desperate than the last. I could track her emotional journey through the timestamps. Anger at midnight, bargaining at 2 a.m., depression at 4 a.m. Wes, please, I know you're getting these. Just call me back. We can talk about this like adults. I made a mistake, okay? I admit it. But you can't just destroy our marriage over one weekend. One weekend. As if this was about one weekend and not 3 months of lies, gaslighting, and treating me like I was crazy for noticing the obvious. The final voicemail came at 6 a.m. Saturday morning. My father wants to talk to you. Her voice was flat now, defeated. He's driving over there this morning. You better answer your phone. I deleted all the messages without listening to the rest and started my Saturday routine. Shower, breakfast, and a trip to the hardware store for some home improvement projects I'd been putting off. When I returned around noon, there was a black Cadillac in my driveway and Robert Beckett standing on my front porch like an angry statue. Robert was old-school military, the kind of man who ironed his jeans and considered a firm handshake a measure of character. He'd always liked me, which had made family gatherings bearable for 12 years. Today, he looked like he wanted to court-martial me. Wesley, his voice could have cut glass. Robert. I got out of my truck and grabbed my hardware store bags. Nice morning. What's this nonsense about changing locks and throwing my daughter out? I walked past him to unlock my front door. Would you like to come in? I just made fresh coffee. He followed me inside, his eyes taking in the empty spaces where Cleo's things used to be. The bare bookshelf, the missing throw pillows, the absence of her ridiculous decorative candles that smelled like vanilla and false promises. I poured 2 cups of coffee and set one in front of him at the kitchen table. She says you've lost your mind, he said, not touching the coffee. Did she tell you where she spent last night? With that coworker friend of hers. Ethan's something. He let her sleep on his couch when she couldn't get into the house. I almost laughed. Even now, even caught red-handed, she was still lying, and Robert was buying it. His couch. I nodded thoughtfully. That's interesting. I pulled out my laptop and opened the folder I'd created Friday evening. Screenshots of credit card charges, photos of receipts I'd found hidden in her car's glove compartment, text message logs from our phone plan that showed 3 months of constant communication with Ethan Drake. "What am I looking at?" Robert asked, but his voice had changed. The certainty was gone. "Your daughter's been having an affair for 3 months. The cabin she went to yesterday? She's been there before. With him. The coworker she claims just let her sleep on his couch." I showed him the receipt from Lakeshore Cabin Rentals. The charge for 2 guests, not 1. The romantic package upgrade that included champagne and chocolate-covered strawberries. Robert stared at the screen for a long time. When he finally looked up, he'd aged 5 years. "You could have talked to her, worked it out." "I tried. She called me toxic for asking questions." He stood up slowly, like a man carrying a heavy weight. "I raised her better than this." "You raised her fine. She made her choices." "What do you want me to do?" "Nothing. She's an adult, but she's not my adult anymore." After Robert left, I spent the afternoon organizing my tools and starting a project I'd been planning for years, converting Cleo's craft room into a proper home office. She'd used the space maybe 6 times in 3 years, but it had been her space, so I'd left it alone. Not anymore. I was painting the first wall when my doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see a red Mustang convertible parked behind my truck. Ethan Drake had come calling. I'd seen him before at Cleo's work parties. Mid-30s, gym-obsessed, the kind of guy who wore cologne to grocery stores and called everyone buddy in that aggressive way that wasn't friendly at all. I opened the door with a paint roller still in my hand. "You must be Wes." He had a smile that belonged in a toothpaste commercial and eyes like a shark. "I'm Ethan. I think we need to talk." "About what?" "About how you're treating Cleo. This whole thing is pretty messed up, buddy." I looked past him at his car. Bright red, spotless, with custom rims that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. The kind of car bought by someone who needed the world to notice him. "Nice Mustang," I said. "Thanks. Look, I get that you're upset, but throwing her out isn't going to solve anything. She's a good person who made a mistake." "A mistake?" I nodded. "Is that what we're calling it?" "She cares about you, man. She feels terrible about this whole situation." I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. Mrs. Dalrymple was indeed watching from her window, probably recording everything for the neighborhood gossip network. "Tell me something, Ethan. When you were at that cabin with my wife, did she mention feeling terrible? Or was she too busy making mistakes?" His smile faltered for just a moment. "I don't know what you think happened, but I know exactly what happened. The question is whether you're going to keep lying about it." He stepped closer, trying to use his height advantage to intimidate me. "Look, buddy, I'm trying to be nice here, but if you keep harassing Cleo, we're going to have a problem." That's when I noticed the gym bag in his back seat, the same bag I'd seen him carry into my house 3 weeks ago, when Cleo claimed he was just dropping off work documents. I walked over to his car and grabbed the bag. "Hey, that's mine." "Not anymore. I carried it to my garbage bin and dropped it in. Consider it a housewarming gift for whatever place you and Cleo end up." "You're crazy." "Maybe, but I'm not the one sleeping with someone else's wife." I went back into my house and closed the door. Through the window, I watched Ethan fish his bag out of my garbage, his face red with humiliation and rage. Mrs. Dalrymple was definitely getting her money's worth today. As his Mustang roared away from my curb, I realized something important. For the first time in months, I was actually enjoying myself. The weekend was just getting started. Sunday morning brought rain and a text message from Andy. "Saw the neighborhood Facebook page. You're famous." I checked the Maple Grove Community Forum and found 3 posts about yesterday's events. Mrs. Dalrymple had started the discussion with a masterpiece of suburban journalism titled Concerning Activities on Elm Street. Witnessed disturbing altercation yesterday afternoon. Loud argument in driveway. Strange man going through garbage. Residents deserve to feel safe in their own neighborhood. The comments were a mix of concern, curiosity, and barely disguised excitement. Nothing like a good scandal to liven up a Sunday morning. Jennifer Walsh from 2 streets over had posted, "Hope everyone is okay. Saw moving boxes outside the Farrow house yesterday." And then came the response that made me smile. Maybe they're just redecorating. Some people are very particular about their interior design choices. Posted by Rick Martinez, my next-door neighbor who'd helped me move those boxes to the curb yesterday morning. I was composing a response when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see Cleo standing on my porch in yesterday's clothes, looking like she'd spent the night in her car. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "We need to talk," she said. "About what?" "About this insane overreaction you're having." She looked awful. Makeup smeared, hair flat on one side, the kind of exhaustion that comes from a sleepless night spent facing consequences. "Where's Ethan?" I asked. "This isn't about him." "Everything's about him, Cleo. That's the problem." She tried to push past me into the house, but I blocked her path. "This is my home, too." "Actually, it's not. It never was. Your name's not on the deed, not on the mortgage, not on any of the utility bills. You were a guest here for 12 years, and now you're not. You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious." That's when she started crying. Real tears. Not the manipulative kind she'd used during arguments about household chores or vacation destinations. These were the tears of someone whose world had just collapsed. "Wes, please. I made a mistake. I know I did. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can work it out." "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. Multiple choices over multiple months. I was confused. I was going through something, and Ethan was just there, and it happened so fast." "Stop." I held up my hand. "Just stop lying. I have the receipts, Cleo. Literally. The cabin rental from 6 weeks ago, the hotel charges, the restaurant bills. This wasn't something that just happened. You planned it." Her tears stopped as quickly as they'd started. The mask slipped, and I saw the real Cleo underneath. Cold, calculating, angry at being caught. "Fine, you want the truth?" "Yes. I've been seeing Ethan. Yes, we went to that cabin. And yes, I lied about it. But do you know why?" "Enlighten me." "Because you've been emotionally unavailable for years. You work all the time. You never want to go anywhere or do anything. And when I try to talk to you about our relationship, you just shut down." It was a masterclass in deflection. Take the spotlight off your betrayal and shine it on your victim's supposed failures. So you decided to cheat instead of having a conversation. I decided to find someone who actually wanted to spend time with me. Then you should have divorced me first. She stared at me for a long moment, probably realizing that her usual tactics weren't working. "What do you want?" she asked finally. "I want you to leave." "And then what? We just pretend 12 years didn't happen?" 12 years did happen. And now they're over. A car pulled into my driveway behind Cleo. Ethan's red Mustang, with Ethan himself getting out like he was riding to the rescue. "Everything okay here?" he called out, walking toward us with that same aggressive confidence from yesterday. "We're fine," Cleo said quickly. "Actually, we're not fine," I corrected. "We're divorced, or we will be as soon as the paperwork goes through." Ethan reached the porch and put a protective arm around Cleo's shoulders. The gesture was clearly meant to mark territory, to show me that she was his now. "Look, man," he said, "I get that you're hurt, but taking it out on Cleo isn't going to change anything." "You're right," I agreed. "It's not going to change anything. It's not going to change the fact that you're both liars. It's not going to change the fact that you pursued a married woman. And it's not going to change the fact that she chose to betray 12 years of marriage for whatever this is. I gestured between them. But here's what it will change. I'll never have to pretend to respect either of you again. Cleo's face went white. Wes, get off my property, both of you. You can't just throw away our marriage. I'm not throwing it away. You already did that. I'm just taking out the trash. Ethan stepped forward, his jaw tight. You better watch your mouth. Or what? You'll steal my wife? Too late. For a moment, I thought he might actually take a swing at me. His hands were clenched, his shoulders squared like he was preparing for a fight. But then Mrs. Dalrymple's front door opened, and she stepped onto her porch with her phone in her hand, clearly recording the whole scene. Ethan noticed her too and forced his hands to relax. Come on, Cleo, he said. This guy's not worth it. They walked back to his car together, Ethan's arms still around her shoulders in that possessive way. I watched them drive away and gave Mrs. Dalrymple a friendly wave. She waved back and held up her phone, pointing to it with a questioning look. I nodded and gave her a thumbs up. Within an hour, the Maple Grove Community Forum had a new post. Update on Elm Street situation. Video available upon request. The comments section exploded. What kind of video? Is everyone safe? Should we call the police? And then from Rick Martinez, no need for police, just a man taking out his trash on schedule, very responsible homeowner. I made myself lunch and started planning the rest of my week. Monday, I'd call a divorce attorney. Tuesday, I'd change my emergency contacts at work. Wednesday, I'd start the process of removing Cleo from my health insurance. But first, I had a phone call to make. Andy, it's me. Feel like grabbing that beer tonight? I've got some stories to tell you. Monday morning brought clarity and a phone call to Patricia Hendricks, the best divorce attorney in the county. Andy had recommended her after his brother's messy separation last year. I can see you this afternoon, she said after I explained the situation. Bring documentation of everything you've told me. I spent the morning organizing my evidence. Bank statements, credit card records, screenshots of text messages, photos of the receipts I'd found. Everything legal, everything documented, everything that painted a clear picture of 3 months of deception. Patricia's office was in downtown, a sleek space with law books and diplomas that suggested competence and expense. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and the kind of handshake that meant business. This is impressive, she said, flipping through my documentation. Most people come in here with suspicions and emotions. You've brought me a case file. I work in software. I believe in data. Good. Data wins cases. She made notes as she talked. The house is solely in your name? Bought it 2 years before we married. She never contributed to mortgage payments or improvements. Joint assets? Checking account with about $8,000. Savings with $12,000. I can document that 90% of the deposits came from my income. Children? No. Prenup? No. But given the asset distribution, it shouldn't matter. She looked up from her notes. Mr. Farrow, I have to ask, are you sure you want to proceed this quickly? Many couples work through infidelity with counseling. I'm sure. Because once we file papers, this becomes public record. Your wife's affair will be documented in court filings. Her employer might become aware of it. There could be professional consequences for both her and her friend. I thought about Ethan's arrogant smile, his territorial arm around Cleo's shoulders, his threat on my front porch. I'm counting on it. Patricia smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. I think we're going to work well together. By Tuesday afternoon, Cleo had been served with divorce papers at her office. I knew because Andy texted me a screenshot from the Maple Grove Community Forum where someone had posted, "Saw a process server at Morrison & Associates this afternoon. Wonder who's getting sued." The response from Jennifer Walsh was immediate. Not sued, divorced. My friend works there. Apparently it was quite the scene. I was updating my emergency contacts at work when my phone rang. Cleo's number. You had me served at my office? Her voice was shaking with rage. I had you served. I don't control where you choose to be when it happens. Everyone saw it, Wes. Everyone knows now. Good. Saves me the trouble of explaining why we're getting divorced. You're destroying my reputation. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just not hiding your choices anymore. The line went quiet for a moment. Ethan thinks we should fight this, she said finally. Ethan thinks a lot of things. Most of them are wrong. He says you can't just take everything. Tell Ethan to read the papers. I'm not taking everything. I'm keeping what's mine and letting you keep what's yours. What's mine? You've left me with nothing. You have your car, your personal belongings, your job, and your relationship with Ethan. That's what you chose. That's what you get. She hung up on me. Wednesday brought a call from Robert Beckett. I've talked to Cleo, he said without preamble. Congratulations. She's staying with me temporarily, until she can find her own place. That's between you and her. She says you're being vindictive, trying to ruin her professionally. I was sitting in my newly converted office, looking at the fresh paint and organized workspace that had replaced Cleo's abandoned craft room. Robert, let me ask you something. If one of your soldiers had lied to you for 3 months, betrayed their oath, and then blamed you for their behavior, what would you have done? That's different. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks exactly the same. She made a mistake. She made a choice, multiple choices, and now she's living with the consequences of those choices. You're going to destroy her over this. I'm not destroying anyone. I'm just not protecting her from the natural consequences of her actions anymore. That evening, Andy came over with pizza and beer. We sat in my living room, which looked bigger and brighter without Cleo's clutter. So what's the plan? He asked. What do you mean? I mean, you've executed phase 1 perfectly. Changed locks, gathered evidence, filed papers. But guys like Ethan don't just disappear. He's going to escalate. Let him. Wes, I'm serious. This guy's been showing off your wife like a trophy. His ego's invested now. When men like that get cornered, they get dangerous. I thought about Ethan's clenched fists on my porch, the way he'd stepped into my personal space trying to intimidate me. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you stay ahead of him. You've been playing chess while he's been playing checkers. Keep it that way. Andy was right. I'd been reactive so far, responding to their moves. It was time to be proactive. I might have an idea, I said. Legal? Completely. Effective? Devastating. Andy grinned and raised his beer. Then let's hear it. I pulled out my laptop and showed him what I'd discovered during my lunch break. Morrison and Associates had a strict policy about workplace relationships. Employees were required to disclose romantic relationships with colleagues to HR to avoid conflicts of interest. Ethan worked in their marketing department. Cleo worked in HR. They never disclosed their relationship, I explained, which means they violated company policy, which means they're both vulnerable to disciplinary action, Andy finished, maybe even termination. Especially since Cleo's position in HR means she was supposed to be enforcing the very policy she was violating. How do you prove they were in a relationship before she was served divorce papers? I opened another folder on my laptop. Credit card records showing joint meals going back 3 months. Hotel charges when I was out of town for work conferences. Text message logs from our phone plan showing hundreds of messages between them. You've been busy, Andy said admiringly. I've been thorough. So what's the delivery method? Anonymous tip to Morrison and Associates ethics hotline with documentation. They'll know it came from you. They'll suspect it came from me. They can't prove it. And more importantly, they can't disprove the evidence. Andy was quiet for a moment, thinking it through. This could cost them both their jobs, he said finally. Yes, it could. And you're okay with that? I thought about Cleo calling me toxic for asking questions about her affair. I thought about Ethan threatening me on my own property. I thought about 12 years of marriage reduced to lies and gaslighting. I'm more than okay with it, I said. I'm looking forward to it. Thursday morning, I made an anonymous call to Morrison & Associates ethics hotline and followed up with an email containing detailed documentation of the undisclosed relationship between two of their employees. By Thursday afternoon, both Cleo and Ethan had been called into separate meetings with the company's ethics committee. By Friday morning, the Maple Grove Community Forum had a new post from someone with inside knowledge of Morrison & Associates. Big drama at the office yesterday. 2 people escorted out by security. Rumor is they were violating the relationship disclosure policy. The comment section was buzzing with speculation, but Rick Martinez had posted the most insightful response. Sometimes when you play with fire, you get burned. Sometimes when you play with someone else's fire, you burn down your whole life. I raised my coffee cup to the window in Rick's direction. The weekend was looking very promising. The phone started ringing at 7 a.m. Saturday morning. Cleo's number, over and over, each call going to voicemail. I let it ring while I made breakfast and planned my day. When the doorbell rang at 9, I wasn't surprised to find her standing on my porch, but I was surprised by how she looked. The polished, confident woman I'd married had been replaced by someone desperate and disheveled. "You got us fired," she said without preamble. "I didn't get anyone fired. Your choices got you fired. Don't play dumb, Wes. We know it was you who called the ethics hotline. You know no such thing. You suspect it was me. There's a difference." She pushed past me into the house before I could stop her, looking around like she was seeing it for the first time, the empty spaces where her things used to be, the reorganized furniture, the fresh paint smell from my new office. "You've erased me," she said quietly. "I've moved on." "In 1 week?" "I started moving on 3 months ago when you started lying to me." She turned to face me, and I saw something new in her expression. Not anger or desperation, but calculation. "Ethan wants to sue you," she said. "For what?" "Harassment, intentional interference with employment, emotional distress." I almost laughed. "Let him try. He's serious, Wes. He's already talked to a lawyer. Good for him. I hope he finds one who works for free because he's going to need it after losing his job. You destroyed his career. He destroyed his career when he decided to sleep with a married woman and violate company policy. I just made sure the right people found out about it." Cleo sat down heavily in what used to be her favorite chair. It looked different now, like a piece of furniture instead of someone's throne. "What do you want from us?" she asked. "I want you to leave me alone. I want you to sign the divorce papers without fighting them. And I want you to accept that your relationship with Ethan cost both of you your jobs because you were too arrogant to follow basic workplace rules. And if we don't, then you'll find out how much more evidence I have and how many more people might be interested in seeing it." Her face went pale. "What kind of evidence?" I sat down across from her, maintaining eye contact. "The kind that shows this affair started before you claim it did. The kind that shows you used company resources to facilitate your relationship. The kind that shows Ethan has a pattern of pursuing married women in the workplace." The last part was a bluff, but her reaction told me I'd hit close to something. "You don't know anything about Ethan's past relationships. I know he's been at Morrison & Associates for 3 years. I know he's worked closely with several married women in that time, and I know how to research public records for divorce filings that might mention workplace affairs." It was another bluff, but Cleo's expression told me I was onto something real. "You're sick," she said, standing up abruptly. "I'm thorough. There's a difference." She headed for the door, then stopped and turned back. "I loved you, you know. For most of our marriage, I really loved you." Past tense noted. "This vindictive person you've become. This isn't the man I married." "You're right. The man you married was naive enough to trust you. Consider this an upgrade. After she left, I called Andy. "How'd it go?" he asked. She confirmed they're both unemployed, and she inadvertently confirmed that Ethan has a history with married coworkers. "You want me to look into that?" Andy worked in IT security and had access to databases that ordinary people couldn't reach. Nothing illegal, just public records and social media deep dives that required professional tools. "If you have time." "I'll make time. This is better than cable." 2 hours later, my phone buzzed with a text from Andy. "Check your email. Found something interesting." The email contained links to 3 different divorce filings from the past 5 years, all in neighboring counties. In each case, the filing mentioned an affair with a co-worker named Ethan Drake. "This guy's a serial homewrecker," Andy had written, "and he's stupid enough to use the same playbook every time." I forwarded the information to Patricia Hendricks with a note. "Additional context for the case file." Her response came back within an hour. "This is gold. If they try to paint you as the aggressor, we can establish a pattern of predatory behavior on Mr. Drake's part." Sunday brought an unexpected visitor. Robert Beckett arrived at noon, but this time he wasn't angry. He looked tired and defeated. "I owe you an apology," he said when I opened the door. "For what?" "For not believing you. For thinking you were overreacting." I invited him in and made coffee while he sat at my kitchen table, staring at his hands. "She told me everything last night," he said finally. "The whole truth. How long it's been going on. How she lied to me about it. How she's been lying to everyone." "I'm sorry, Robert." "No, you're not, and you shouldn't be. I raised her to be better than this." "You raised her fine." "She made adult choices. Bad choices. Choices that cost her everything." He looked up at me. "Did you really get them both fired?" I reported a violation of company policy. Their employer made the decision to terminate them. "Ethan's furious. He's talking about revenge, about making you pay for ruining his life." "His life was already ruined. He just didn't know it yet." "Be careful, Wesley. Desperate men do stupid things." After Robert left, I spent the afternoon researching home security systems. If Ethan was escalating from threats to action, I wanted to be prepared. Monday morning brought news that the Maple Grove Community Forum had been busy over the weekend. Mrs. Dalrymple had posted a new thread. "Suspicious vehicle on Elm Street. Red sports car drove by slowly multiple times yesterday evening. Driver appeared to be watching houses. Residents should be aware." The comments were a mix of concern and speculation, but Rick Martinez had posted the most useful response. "Got it on my security camera. License plate clearly visible. Happy to share with anyone who needs it." I sent Rick a private message asking for the footage. His response included not just the license plate number, but clear images of Ethan driving slowly past my house at 8 p.m., 9 p.m., and 10 p.m. Sunday night. I forwarded everything to Patricia Hendricks and added a note. "Possible stalking behavior. Recommend documenting for potential restraining order." Her response was immediate. "Already drafting the paperwork. This guy's digging his own grave." Tuesday brought the restraining order hearing. Ethan showed up with a lawyer who looked like he'd been hired that morning. Patricia showed up with a file folder thick enough to stop bullets. The judge reviewed our evidence. The threatening behavior on my property, the repeated drive-bys captured on security cameras, and the documented pattern of predatory relationships with married women. Ethan's lawyer tried to argue that his client was simply trying to maintain contact with his girlfriend's estranged husband for the sake of reconciliation. The judge was not impressed. "Mr. Drake, you are hereby ordered to maintain a distance of at least 500 feet from Mr. Farrow, his residence, and his place of employment. Any violation of this order will result in immediate arrest." As we left the courthouse, Patricia was practically glowing. "That was beautiful," she said. "His lawyer didn't even try to deny the pattern of behavior." "What happens now?" "Now we wait for him to violate the restraining order. Men like that always do." And if he doesn't? Then you've won. Clean divorce, protected assets, and a legal barrier between you and the people who betrayed you. That evening, I sat in my newly organized home office, looking at the fresh paint and clean workspace that had replaced the chaos of Cleo's abandoned projects. For the first time in months, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. The phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? You think you've won. Ethan's voice tight with rage. I think I've moved on. This isn't over. Actually, it is. And if you call me again, you'll be explaining to a judge why you violated a restraining order. I hung up and immediately called Patricia to report the violation. That was fast, she said. Even faster than I expected. What's the next step? We call the police and have him arrested, and then we add harassment charges to your divorce filing. Perfect. As I waited for the police to arrive, I realized that Andy had been wrong about one thing. Ethan wasn't playing checkers while I played chess. He wasn't playing any game at all. He was just making the same mistakes he'd always made, expecting different results. And I was documenting every single one of them. The police arrested Ethan at his apartment complex Wednesday morning. I knew because Andy texted me a screenshot from a local news Facebook page. Local man arrested for violating restraining order. The mugshot showed Ethan looking like he'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. The confident, predatory smile was gone, replaced by the hollow stare of someone whose world had collapsed. Feel good? Andy asked when he called me later. Feel finished, I replied. But I wasn't finished. Not quite yet. Thursday morning brought a knock on my door from someone I didn't recognize, a woman in her 40s, professional but tired looking. Mr. Farrow, I'm Detective Lisa Chen. I'd like to ask you some questions about Ethan Drake. I invited her in and made coffee while she explained why she was there. Mr. Drake's arrest for violating your restraining order led us to review some other complaints we've received about him. We're investigating a pattern of stalking and harassment involving multiple women. Multiple women? 3 others have come forward since his arrest made the news. All similar situations. All involving workplace relationships that ended badly. She showed me photos of the other women. Young, professional, all with the same haunted look that Cleo had developed over the past 2 weeks. We'd like your permission to include your documentation in our broader investigation. Of course. And we'd like to know if you've observed any concerning behavior beyond what's already been reported. I thought about the phone call, the drive-bys, the threats on my property. He's escalating, I said. Each interaction has been more aggressive than the last. That fits the pattern. The other victims report similar escalation before they were able to get away from him. After Detective Chen left, I called Patricia to update her on the investigation. This is excellent news, she said. If he's facing criminal charges, he'll be too busy defending himself to fight your divorce. And Cleo? She'll probably want to distance herself from him as quickly as possible. I expect we'll have signed papers by next week. Patricia was right. Friday afternoon, Cleo's new lawyer called to schedule a settlement conference. My client is prepared to accept the terms as filed, he said. She just wants this resolved quickly. Smart choice, Patricia replied. The settlement conference was scheduled for the following Monday. Simple, clean, uncontested. Exactly what I'd wanted from the beginning. But Sunday brought one final surprise. I was working in my garden when Cleo appeared at my front gate. She looked different again, smaller somehow, like she'd been deflated. Can we talk? She asked. About what? About Ethan. About what he really is. I set down my gardening tools and walked over to the gate, but I didn't open it. What about him? The police came to see me yesterday. They told me about the other women, about what he did to them. And I realized that I was just another target. Another married woman he could manipulate and control. I waited for her to continue. He never loved me, did he? This was just a game to him. Probably. And I threw away 12 years of marriage for a game. Yes, you did. She started crying then, but these weren't the manipulative tears from our earlier confrontations. These were the tears of someone who'd finally understood the magnitude of their mistakes. I'm sorry, Wes. I'm so sorry for everything. I know you are. Can you ever forgive me? I looked at her through the gate, this woman I'd loved for 12 years, who'd shared my bed and my dreams and my future, who'd thrown it all away for a man who collected married women like trophies. I forgive you, I said finally, but I don't trust you, and I don't love you anymore. I understand. Do you? Because this is the last conversation we're ever going to have. After Monday, we'll be strangers who used to know each other. She nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. For what it's worth, she said, you were a good husband, better than I deserved. You're right. I was. After she left, I finished planting my garden and went inside to make dinner, just for one, like I'd been doing for 2 weeks now. Monday morning, I met Patricia at the courthouse for the final settlement conference. Cleo was there with her lawyer, looking small and defeated in a chair across the room. The conference lasted 20 minutes. Cleo signed everything without argument, accepted the settlement terms without negotiation, and agreed to the divorce decree without protest. That's it, Patricia said as we walked out of the courthouse. You're officially divorced. How do you feel? She asked. I thought about it for a moment. How did I feel? Free, I said finally. I feel free. That afternoon, I changed my relationship status on social media and updated my emergency contacts one final time. I scheduled a vacation for the following month, something I'd wanted to do for years, but Cleo had always found reasons to postpone, and I called Andy. It's over, I told him. How over? Completely over. Signed, sealed, delivered. Celebration dinner? Absolutely. That evening, as I sat in my clean, organized, peaceful home, I reflected on the past 3 weeks. 3 weeks ago, I'd been a married man living a lie. Tonight, I was a divorced man living the truth. My phone buzzed with a text from Rick Martinez. Saw the moving truck at your ex-wife's dad's place today. Looks like she's relocating. I typed back, new beginnings for everyone. His response came immediately. Some endings are really beginnings in disguise. I raised my beer toward the window in Rick's direction and settled in to enjoy my first evening as a completely free man. The house was quiet, but it wasn't empty. It was full of possibilities. And for the first time in years, I was looking forward to exploring every single one of them. The weekend was over, so was the marriage, but my life was just beginning.